In this video, I'll be demonstrating how to use Inkscape to make this image of an insect. Let's start by creating the background. So go over and select the rectangle tool and then draw a rectangle. And we don't want the border that's around the edge of this, which is called the stroke. So we can turn that off by going down to the stroke color right here, right click, and then select Remove Stroke. And now let's resize our background. So come up here and click on the Select button, which is this arrow right here. And here we can see the width and the height of this rectangle. So change the width to 2000 pixels and change the height to 1500 pixels. And next, let's change the color. So come down here to the color palette, and I'm going to go over here until I get to the blues, and I'll select this color right here. So now let's create the eyes of the insect. And we can first deselect this background area just by clicking anywhere in the white space. And then click on the circle tool and set the color to red. And now just click and drag the mouse while you draw a circle. And if you press the Control key while you do this, you'll get a perfect circle. And now let's set the size for this circle. So click on the Select tool. And now if we click on this little padlock until it looks like it's locked, that'll lock the width and the height together so that the proportions will remain constant. And so let's set this width to 500 pixels. And you'll notice that the height was also set with it. And then next, add a gradient to this circle, and we can do that by clicking on the Gradient tool. And then come up here and make sure that you have Radial Gradient selected. And then position the cursor about here, and then click and drag. And this is creating a gradient with red at this spot right here, and then the endpoints are transparent. But we want this endpoint to be black instead of transparent. So while this handle right here is selected, and you'll see it lit up in blue, we can just come down here and click on another color, so I'm going to choose black. Then I can adjust these two handles independently until I get the look that I want. And that looks good right there. And now we're going to duplicate this, so you can start by pressing on the Select button to select it, and then press Ctrl D on your keyboard. And now you can move this duplicate off to the right. And if you hold down the Control key while you move it, it'll go straight over to the right. And now let's group these two together. So with this right one still selected, hold down your Shift key and click on the left one. And the Shift key allows you to select multiple objects. And then come down to this button right here, which is the Group Objects button. And then next we're going to center these two eyes within this background here. So to do that, go up to the Object menu and select Align and Distribute. And this will bring up the Align and Distribute dialog box. And now click on the blue background to select it. And then hold down the Shift key and click on one of these eyes. And then come over to the dialog box here. And for the Relative to option, select First Selected. And that will align the objects to the object that you selected first. And then if you press this button right here, this will center your objects on the vertical axis. And then press this button right here, and this will center them horizontally. And then next you can deselect both of these objects by just clicking on the white area back here. And then click on the Rectangle tool and set the color to black. And then draw a rectangle starting at about the center of this left eye. And then just drag this over until you're about at the center of the right eye. And then come down just a little ways from the bottom. And then now we'll center this rectangle. So click on the Select tool, and then click the background, hold the Shift key, and click on this black rectangle. And then click this button to center it on the vertical axis. And this time we don't want to center it on the horizontal axis because we just want to keep it where we've placed it. And now we're going to change the shape of this rectangle using the Paths tool. But first we need to convert this rectangle into a path. And we can do that by going to the Path menu and select Object to Path. And now we can press on the Paths tool here, and you'll see that we have 4 nodes, one for each corner. And so let's start by dragging this bottom left node over here until we reach the edge of the left eye. And we'll do the same for the right one. And we can add additional nodes by double clicking. So come over to about this spot right here and double click to add a node, and do the same thing right here. Double click to add another node. Now just go to the center of these two nodes, press and hold your mouse button, and you could drag the line that connects these two nodes together. We'll just drag it up to about there. And now come up to the top and add a node here and here. And then you can drag these nodes up a little bit. And then come to the center of these two nodes and pull this down. And then next click on this left line over here and pull it in to about here. And then do the same with the right side. So you can see that the Paths tool is a very nice tool for changing the shape of an object. So now let's duplicate this object. So click on the Select button, and then click in this white area to deselect everything. And then click on this black object and press Ctrl D on the keyboard to duplicate it. And then change the color to brown. And then we're going to size this down a little bit. So you can go up to the Path menu and select Dynamic Offset. And when you do this, you'll see that you have a single handle here that you can grab. So just grab on this handle and pull it down to resize this. And this looks good. And let's add a gradient to this selection. So click on the Gradient tool, and then come up here and make sure that Linear Gradient is selected. And then just click and drag your mouse to create the gradient. And now let's make the body of the insect. So go over here and select the Circle tool, and then create an ellipse shape, and then set the color to black. And then let's center this. So go up and click on the Select tool, and then click on the background, and then hold the Shift key and click on the ellipse, and then click on the Center Vertically button. And then click in the white area to deselect everything. And now let's move this ellipse until it's below the eyes. And we can do that by first clicking on it to select it. And then if you click this button right here, it'll move it to the very bottom, but it also moved it behind our blue background. And so if you click this button right here, it'll move it up by one layer. And then let's also reposition it a little bit. So just click and hold the mouse button and drag this up. And I'm holding the Control key while I do this so it drags it straight up. And now let's make a copy of this layer by pressing Ctrl D, and then change the color to brown, and then go up to the Path tool and select Dynamic Offset, and then we'll shrink this down a little bit. And then let's move this down below the eyes. So click on the Select button, and then click this button here to move it clear to the bottom. And then we need to press this one 2 times to bring it up above the black body section. And now let's deselect everything by clicking in the white background area. And for this next step, we're going to zoom in so that we can see what we're doing a little bit better. So you can click on the Zoom tool right here, and then use it to select a rectangular shape right around here, and then that'll zoom in on this area. And now click on the Rectangle tool, and then come down here and set the color to white, and then draw a rectangle. And for this rectangle, we want to have a black border or a black stroke around the edge of it. So we can do that by holding down the Shift key and then click the black color right here. And this added a thin black border, and we want to thicken up the border a little bit. So if you come down here next to the stroke color, you'll see the black color with a 1 by it. And this 1 means that it's 1 pixel wide. So if you right click on the 1, you can come up here and set another size. And so we'll select 4. And now let's turn this rectangle into a path. So come up to the Path menu and select Object to Path. And now you can select the Paths tool. And then the first thing that we want to do is to remove this node right here. So click on it to select it. And then if you click this button right here, this will remove that node. And then you can come down here and move this node a little bit, and then click on this line, and we'll just reshape this a little bit, and I'll reshape the left line as well. And that looks good. And then next, click on the Select tool, and then press Ctrl D on your keyboard to duplicate this. And then click this button right here to make a mirror image of this. And now we can take this duplicate copy that we've just mirrored and pull it over to the right side. And now let's add a gradient to this. So click on the Gradient tool, make sure Linear Gradient is selected, then press and hold the mouse button while you drag this over to the side to make a gradient. And with this handle selected, and you'll see it in blue, come down here and select the color black. And this will give us a gradient that goes from white to black. And then do the same thing on the left side. So we first need to go to the Select tool and select the left side here, and then we'll add our gradient. And again, I'm going to change this side to black. And I'll just readjust this a little bit, and that looks good. And now we can zoom back out by going to the View menu and select Zoom and Drawing. And this will zoom out to include our entire drawing. And now let's make an antenna for the left side. So click on the Rectangle tool, and starting about right here, draw a rectangle until you get to about this point. And then convert this rectangle to a path by going to the Path menu and select Object to Path, and then select the Paths tool. And now grab the node on the bottom left side and drag it up to about here. And then you can grab this node on the top right side and drag it to the left and down a little bit. And then we want to add a node right here, so double click, and then move this node up here. And then double click here to add another node and drag this node down. And now just go along this line here somewhere and drag this up to reshape it. And then do the same for the bottom side of it right here. Drag this up. And then you can grab this bottom part right here and drag this down. And do the same with the top section. And now let's apply a filter to this antenna. So come up here to the Filters menu and select Bevels and Bright Metal. And then next we're going to make a duplicate of this and move it over to the right side. So first click on the Select tool, and then press Ctrl D on your keyboard to duplicate it. And then click on this button right here to flip it. And then you can move this copy over to the right side. So next, let's make the wings. So click on the Rectangle tool, and then draw a rectangle starting at about right here. And then come over here till you're about at the center of this. And then let's convert this to a path by going to the Path menu and select Object to Path, and then click on the Paths tool. Now for the wing, we want to remove this node right here, so click on it to select it, and then click this button right here to delete this node. And then you can grab this edge right here and pull it down. And here on the left where this node is, we don't want there to be a sharp corner here. And so we can fix that by selecting this node and then come up to this button right here and click on this. And this will turn this into a smooth corner. And then we want to do the same thing to this node down here, so select it and then click on this button. And now you can grab the wing up at the top here and just pull this down to reshape it. And then you can do the same at the bottom here. And we'll also pull this node in a little bit. And that looks good. And now click on the Select tool and change the color of this wing to white. And then we want to remove this border or stroke around the edge of it. So you can go down to the area that says Stroke right here where it's black, and just right click on this and select Remove Stroke. And next we're going to add a gradient. So click on the Gradient tool, and then make sure that linear gradient is selected, and then just press and hold the mouse button while you drag the gradient down. And then we want the bottom of this gradient to be black, so while this node is still selected, just come down here and click on the black color. And then next we want to add some little veins to this wing. So click on the Draw Freehand tool here, and then come over to the wing and just draw a crooked line on top of it. And then come back to a couple more spots along here and draw a little crooked line that connects to it but then comes off out towards the outside. And this looks good. And then next we want to change the color of all of these little lines to white. So we can do that by clicking on the Select tool, and then starting out here in the white area, just draw a rectangle that encloses all of these lines, and then release the mouse button to select all of them. And then we want to change the stroke color for these lines. So press the Shift key, and then while you're holding the Shift key, click on the white color down here. And that changed the color to white. And now we want to group these veins with the wing itself. So while you keep all of these still selected, hold the Shift key and click on the wing. And now with all of these selected, just come over here and press this button right here to group them together. And then next make a duplicate of this wing by pressing Ctrl D. And then we're going to resize this duplicate. So just come up to the top and drag this down. So we're going to make this wing a lot thinner. And then come over to the left edge and drag it in just a little bit. And now with this wing still selected, hold the Shift key and select the bigger wing. And now let's group these two wings together by pressing the Group button right here. And then press Ctrl D again to duplicate this. And click on this button right here to flip it over. And then drag this over to the right side. And then with this still selected on the right, hold down the Shift key and click on the wings on the left side, and then group these together again using this button. And now let's move the wings down behind the body. So come up here and click this button to move it clear to the bottom, and then this button right here to move it up one level. And then next we're going to add a little bit of a shine to these eyes. So click on the Ellipse tool, and then draw a circle, and hold down the Control key so that you can draw a perfect circle. And we want to turn off the stroke. So come down here next to stroke where it's white, right click, and select Remove Stroke. And then next change the color to white by just clicking on the white color. And then click on the Select tool, and then just move this over to the left a little bit. And now we're going to add a gradient to it. So click the Gradient tool, make sure that you have Linear Gradient selected, and then starting in the center of the circle, just pull this down to the bottom right. And then you can grab the left side of it and pull it off to the left. And now let's make a duplicate of this. So click on the Select tool, and then press Ctrl D to duplicate, and then move the duplicate over to the right side. And now let's also add a gradient to this brown section on the body down here. So click in the brown area to select it, then click on the Gradient tool, and just starting about right here, just pull down to make a gradient. And that looks good. And now we're going to make a branch underneath our insect. So click on the Rectangle tool, and then draw a big rectangle that extends outside of the blue area. And then change its color to olive. And then we're going to add a gradient, so click on the Gradient tool. And then starting at the top of this, pull down until you get just past the bottom. And we're going to add two more nodes to this gradient. So double click right here, that will add a node, and double click right here, and that will add another node. So this top color is already set to olive. So click on this next node right here to select it, and then click on a black color to set it to black. And then click the next node down and set its color to olive. And then click on the very bottom node and set its color to black. And let's rotate this a little bit. So click on the Select tool, and then come down here and click on this one time until this corner changes to this arrow that curves. And then you can click on this corner arrow, and this will allow you to rotate it. And then next we want to clip the ends of this off so that it's even with our blue background. So first select the blue background, and then make a duplicate of it by pressing Ctrl D. And with the duplicate still selected, hold down the Shift key and click on the green area right here. And now with both of these selected, come up to the Object menu, select Clip and Set. And now our edges are clipped to match the blue background. And then next we're going to add the legs of the insect. So click on the Rectangle tool, and then come over here and draw a rectangle about this size. And then go up to the Path menu and select Object to Path, and then select the Paths tool. And now we're going to turn this rectangle into a leg. So start by double-clicking on this edge right here to add a node, and then just pull this node over, and then grab this node over here and pull it over to here. Then double-click on this spot to add another node and pull it up, and then double-click right here to add one more node and pull this node over here. And so that makes our first leg. So now to make the second one, just click on the Select tool, press Ctrl D to duplicate, and then move this over a little bit, and press on the Paths tool. And now you can reposition these nodes for the second leg. So I'll just pull that down there, and then I'll move these two nodes over here. And that looks good. So then I'll do this again. I'll press the Select button, and then Ctrl D to duplicate, and then I'll move this over, and then click on the Paths tool again, and then I'll reposition these nodes. And then next go up and click on the Select tool, and then while this leg is still selected, hold the Shift key and click on this leg and this leg. And then group them all together using this button right here. And then press Ctrl D to duplicate. And then flip it over using this button right here. And then drag the duplicate over to the right side. And that looks good. And then we can click on this white background area to deselect everything. Then the final thing that we're going to do is to roughen up some of the edges around part of the body and around part of the head section. So first click on this black body section right here, then hold the Shift key and click on the brown body area. And then while you're still holding the Shift key, click on the black head area, and then also click on the brown area in the head. And with all of these areas selected, come up to the Filters menu, select ABCs, and Roughen. And then click in this white background area to deselect everything. And if you look, you can now see a little rough edge that goes around these sections that we just selected. So now we have the final image of our insect. Well, that completes this video. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe and leave a comment.